I've got some great footage to show you from the Lancaster Insurance Classic Motor Show at the NEC in Birmingham last weekend, including some really rare stuff that I'm really excited about, and some other cars that aren't so rare but are also really gorgeous. I'm going to do that A to Z format again because that seems to work quite well, and so let's crack on with it. A is for Alvis. Mention Alvis and people often think of tanks, all those big 1950s coupes, but they made some absolutely stunning pre-war cars like this 1940 4.3 litre Razor Edge. The chassis was built by Alvis in September 1939, so that must have been just days before the Second World War broke out. And then Van den Plas added the gorgeous coachwork and interior before it was registered in 1940. It's absolutely beautiful, if perhaps a little unfortunate in its timing. B is for Borgward. I've never seen so many Borgward Isabellas in one place, and they were a real joy. So nicely finished, so 1950s with all this cream Bakelite and those chunky buttons in the middle of the dash. Borgward is a slightly forgotten German car maker now, with quite an interesting story that maybe I should tell one day if I can somehow get enough footage of one of their cars to go with it. The coupes are very pretty, but I've got a real soft spot for this combi. I love these squared off window frames and the little detailing. Especially, look at that interior. It's the sort of family car that is the post-war German economic miracle wrapped up in one automotive package. And these fantastic sculpted tail lights as well. Just lovely. And the Isabella coupes are so pretty. I don't think they're hugely fast, but sometimes there's more to life than going hugely fast. C is for Citroen. There were a lot of nice Citroens at the show, but my favourite was this SM. It's one of my few remaining bucket list cars, an SM, and being allowed to sit in this one has done nothing at all to diminish my enthusiasm. Those one-piece seats are every bit as comfortable as you'd hope. It's absolutely stunning. I mean, just look at it. Strong colour this as well. There's a lot going on under the bonnet and people have the fear of them really, but I mean it's mostly just a lot of pipes. How hard can it be really? As with all hydro Citroens, you do kind of need to know what you're doing, I suppose, but there are people who do know what they're doing with them. Maserati V6 in these, of course. Citroen had bought Maserati in 1968, and some Maseratis shared some of Citroen's hydro pneumatics in return. This one's a 2.7 carburettor model, and I really like its condition. It's really honest and not over restored, but still very tidy. A real treat to see. D is for Datsun. This 1975 260C Cedric was wonderful, number plate and all. But the dealer wanted a fair bit of money for it. It's scruffy, but it looked very solid, and it even has a recent MOT. It's absolutely full of character though. What a great car to roll around in, just as it is. Maybe put a bit of lacquer on to protect it from that surface rust or something, but yeah, don't go restoring it. Please don't restore it. Just run it as is. Knob, number plate and all. Perfect. E is for electric classic cars. The ECC conversion people were here with an electric Beetle, a Land Rover and even a Ferrari Testarossa converted to Tesla power. These conversions do seem to polarise opinions in today's tribal world, unsurprisingly. Personally, I can see both sides of the argument, and I might even do a future video on the topic of converting classic cars to run on electric. Let me know in the comments if you'd be interested in a discussion about that, but please no fighting. F is for Fords. There were so many Fords that they had a whole hall to themselves, but the greedy things took over various stands in the rest of the place as well. There was a whole auction area full of them, for example, in one of the other halls. And why not? There were lots of highlights, like this row of Fiesta Super Sports, some of which looked like they wanted to be XR2s when they grew up. There was an Imperial Maroon Anglia 105E, like my mother used to have when I first went to school, only this one had been modified a bit. A few Anglias actually, including these Estates, which were looking really rather nice. A couple of Townas's, this really original 17M and a 20RS, I think a South African car. It's right-hand drive, and I don't think we ever got these in the UK. The first Ford to have carried the RS Rally Sport badge. There you are, there's a fun fact for you. Plus a couple of Granadas as well, complete with Keep Your Granny Alive sticker. I need to get one of those. I used to have one in my Mark II Estate, and somebody removed it, and I'd quite like it back. Probably not the first job to do on that Granada though. A new engine is the first job to do. We'll get there. Assorted Capris, this white one was smart. And I had to chuckle at what the Capri Owners Club seemed like they've got a really good sense of humour. They had this CI5 professional setup going on with all these boxes as well. Made me smile. And at the restoration show they had mannequins working on the cars while they were off doing something else. So I don't know them, and I don't have a Capri, and I can't afford to buy one, but I just like what they do with their stands. It made me chuckle. Various Cortinas as well. This early Cortina 80 was really smart. And I like this really straight early Mark III Crayford convertible. It's nice to see cars like this looking straight on the right wheels and all of that. It's been really nicely, I assume, restored and look really good. There's a whole debate to be had over restore versus preserve, and it's kind of exemplified by these two Ford half-ton pickup trucks from the 1940s. One of them looking rough but kind of lacquered to preserve it by the looks of it, a little bit on the shiny side, and then this restored one that was that's been sort of done in modern paint and looked really sharp, but very different styles. What do you think? I quite like both myself, but let me know in the comments if you've got views. Keep it clean. G is for Gordon Keeble. When I was about 7, I had an I Spy book of car badges or something similar, and the one that never got filled in was the Gordon Keeble Tortoise. Well, if I still had the book, I could at least tick that off my long list of unfinished projects. These are a Giugiaro design, an early one, and you can tell it's very much got his look. The Gordon in Gordon Keeble was John Gordon, who'd previously worked at Peerless. There were some Peerless cars here too, but I don't think I got any footage. A vaguely similar Italian-styled car was these Humber Scepter Venezia Superleggera, of which there were 2 out of about 160 or so built. Designed by Touring rather than Giugiaro at Bertone, you can still see some bits of the underlying Humber Scepter, like the grille and the rear lights and various other bits and pieces. Really pretty cars these, but I think they were too expensive to sell well. These are a new one on me, so I was really pleased to see them here. You learn something every day. H is for handles, and specifically door handles. I thought about doing an entire video about just the door handles of the NEC show, but that's probably a little bit niche, and maybe that fetish is just me. But I do love a well-turned door handle, like the ones on this De Tomaso Pantera, or on the Renault 16 here. Look how beautifully fared in that is, and how it follows the line of the bodywork. This Fiat Strada as well, these early Series 1 Fiat Stradas had the most magnificent round door handles that were so stylish and different at the time, really brave. And the ones on this Tatra T87 are so delicate and beautiful. They just make you want to reach out and get in the car. More on these Tatras later. I is for Isigonis. There were plenty of Sir Alex creations here, several ADO 16s like this Morris 1300 GT and these 6-cylinder Land Crabs, and some nice Maxis as well. I especially like the gold HL here with brown velour seats. The AD016 people also had this wonderful cutaway model of an A-series engine. I really like that. And while we're in the neighbourhood, there were some very tidy Allegros too, including this rare and immaculate 1750 SS, which I thought should have twin carbs, but evidently I was wrong. It's just got the one. And this very early 1300, whose beauty lies in its simplicity and the lack of the stick-on plastic tat that so marred the later Allegros. I really like that one. J is for Jensen. There are a few of these handsome things around, but this FF particularly caught my eye. FF being, of course, Ferguson Formula, the four-wheel drive anti-lock brake version. The more you look, though, the rougher it is, and I was chatting with my friend Ronald McBollocks, who has a long history of heroic welding up of cars, but even he said he wouldn't know where to start. The dealer reckoned the place to start was £26,000 underwater, so that's a no from us. It was even held together with structural welding clamps and cable ties, and I mean, it's just a mess. Brave one for someone. Amazing car when it's done though, if that ever happens. K is for Callista, this little Panther Roadster with the Ford Cologne engine. It succeeded the similarly styled Lima that had Vauxhall underpinnings. And there's one of those here too, both of them very handsome, and apparently they're a lot of fun to drive. If you're geeky like me, you'll spot the MG midget doors and windscreen, and there's probably various bits of switchgear in this rather nice interior. There were some other exciting Panthers too, but I'll talk about those next time. L is for Lotus, of course, and I was both excited and slightly depressed to see this immaculate éclat in Lagoon Blue with this brown and cream interior. Excited because it's very smart indeed, and depressed because this is the exact colour combination that my 76 Elite is supposed to be, but really isn't. I might have to start doing something about that next summer. This one was definitely winking at me. Look how smart that is. Lovely. Not convinced about the black number plates, mind, but each to his own. M is for Marathon Rally and Marina. Super indeed. Look at the V8 install that they've put into this Marina. It's a V8, well, it's a Rover V8, although it's actually out of an MGB with those twin SU carbs and that whole airbox arrangement, and the high air intakes for going across the desert, and a camel bar to protect you. The front valance has been built out and the whole engine bay has been extended. While we're in the area, there was a really nice Marina estate as well, looking immaculate and straight out of 1978. I'm not massive a Marina fan, but the estates are good looking things. N is for Not Many Golfs. The Mark I owners were here with some nice examples across the range of modified and stock, hatchback and convertible, but I only spotted a couple of Mark IIs in the whole show. I think they might even have been outnumbered by DeLoreans and Bugattis, unless I missed a whole nest of them somewhere. This Rivage was lovely. I used to have one of these. Mine was blue and this is green. They only came in the two colours. They were kind of run out, all the toys special edition. Mine lives on with new owners, Fugatti Cars on YouTube, and his Mrs. Claire, whose car it actually is. There were some really nice Scirocco's as well. This blue-grey Mark I GTI, well, Mark I facelift. And next to it was this black Mark II GTX, I think. Even the dashboard isn't terribly warped on this. Look really smart. I'm fond of those. I used to have a Mark II Scirocco. It kind of died a death in the end, but it was fun while it lasted. O is for OMG, there's a De Tomaso Mangusta. I thought these were semi-mythical things like the Monteverdi High. Certainly never seen one before, although I looked it up and they made about 400 of them, so they're not quite as rare as I thought. But I've still never seen one, and they are just magnificent. It's got this gull-winged engine cover, and they're just so handsome. I'd have one of these over a Ferrari any day of the week. It's an absolutely stunning mix of Italian style and Ford Windsor engine brutality. The Pantera next to it is just as lovely as well. They're all dramatic, but I especially like the delicacy of this early one that's been beautifully and lovingly restored by its owner. The lines are just so crisp and sharp. I've already got excited about the door handles, but just gorgeous. So underrated. Real privilege to see actually both of them, to be honest, but particularly the Mangusta because of how rare they are, and never seen one before. Is it only me who sees a little bit of Leyland Princess in that front end? Probably. P is for Peugeot. Peugeots were pretty thin on the ground this year, actually. There were some 205s and things, but yeah. Anyway, quality outdid quantity with this beautiful 504 Riviera shooting brake converted from a 504 convertible. Pininfarina made a one-off concept car like this back in the 1970s that's been lost since. And this recreation of it was based on various bits of drawings that survived. It's beautifully done and an absolutely gorgeous car. Amazing craftsmanship and an amazing vision, and I mean, I dread to think how much it cost on the part of whoever owns it. Just fantastic. Love the colour as well. I know that's not really the point. Brilliant thing. One of the highlights of the show, this. Q is for quick. There were all sorts of racing cars at the show, but highlights for me were Roger Nathan with his Costin Racer from Le Mans. I'll put a link down in the description to his book that he was that he had on sale. Fantastic thing. Fiberglass over wood. The other quick things I particularly liked were the National Motor Museum stand featuring two Sunbeam Land record cars. Henry Seagrave was the first to hit 200 miles an hour in this massive red one, sitting between two 500 horsepower aero engines back in 1927. It's absolutely vast, this. It's seriously the size of a truck, and I guess with no kind of wing arrangements or anything, it was probably that mass that kept it on the ground. It was so intimidating. You see, one of the engines is in the car and one of them was out, and you could have a look at it. Twin sparks per cylinder for, I guess, for aero engine redundancy purposes. I mean, literally an awesome vehicle in the true sense of that word. The blue car is also an aero engine Sunbeam, one of Sir Malcolm Campbell's Bluebird series with a 350 horsepower engine that set a record of over 150 miles an hour at Pendine Sands in 1924. I talked about that actually some more in my film on the sand races that the vintage hot rod people do at Pendine every summer still, which I'd love you to go and watch after you've finished this film, because it's a great car story that YouTube decided not to show anyone, and that's a shame, and I'm quite proud of my little film. There were some lovely little specials as well on the Vintage Sports Car Club. This is a Gravity Racer soapbox car, but it's a sort of replica of its big brother next door. I didn't take very good notes on these, I've just realised, and usually I try and photograph the plaques. It's an epic thing though. It's just brilliant. It's V-twin, air-cooled. There's nothing to it. It's so shonky. R is for Rovers. I love the interiors of these P5s, especially the roof chop coupe like this one. A friend at university had one in blue with cream interior, and it was just the most extraordinary way to travel. It was like a mobile gentleman's club. There were quite a lot of other Rovers too, from this left-hand drive SD3 Vitesse, some 800s, including this really nice coupe. I do like those. There were just a couple of SD1s and this stunning convertible that Jerry Lloyd built from a mashup of a Rover 75 and a BMW 3 Series. It's a gorgeous car and beautifully made. He made a 75 coupe too in much the same way that's equally stunning. Amazing workmanship and vision, and they just work so well. S is for 6, as in Alpha 6, of which there were 2. These are very handsome things, these big Alpha saloons, derived from the Alfetta, and with the first application of the famous Busso V6 engine. Just gorgeous. And part of a row of lovely Alphas. This Alpha Sud TI, and yeah, this one wasn't painted by Edward Fox in the woods in Day of the Jackal with 2 rattle cans, was it? Alpha 75, and this 166 in that trick flip paint that they came in. I mean, it looks good. I'm not sure, it's a bit out there on a big saloon like that. I must say I didn't have seen 2 Alpha 6s down on my bingo card that morning, but there we are. A joy it was. And elsewhere there was an Alpha 90 as well, in absolutely immaculate condition. There's a couple of things that these are famous for. One is that the glove box doubles as a removable briefcase, present and correct on this car, as it so often isn't. And the other is the movable front spoiler that drops down to give more stability at high speed. I can't remember what speed off the top of my head. Someone will know. Watch Joseph Lloyd's thing of the show. He'll know. He'll tell you all about it. T is for Tatra, those mad rear-engine Czech limousines. They're a sort of parallel universe cross between an early Saab, a Porsche, and that Sunbeam record car. There's really nothing like them, and they have huge presence. The Eastern Bloc motor stand featured this pre-war T87 and a 603 from 1964. I have no idea what they're like to drive. I would love to get my hands on one to find out. They're extraordinary. Air-cooled rear engine, V8 in the 603, 2.5 litres off the top of my head, something like that, putting out a massive 90 brake horsepower, which doesn't sound very much, but I think it does the job. I wonder what they handle like. U is for untouchable. The XJS Club had a sign on every car saying please do not touch, and was about the only club stand I'd noticed that had that sort of thing. At the time I thought it was a little bit unfriendly, but since then I've noticed this big fat greasy handprint on the Citroen SM, and so I've got a little bit more sympathy for it really. It wasn't my handprint on the SM, by the way. I only left a tongue print. But back to the XJS's. There was a range of variants, including an interesting looking Daimler XJS without the characteristic buttresses. I've vaguely heard of that, maybe on AR Online or somewhere, but I've never seen it in the flesh before. I didn't need to touch their XJS's. I have my own XJS to touch at home. In fact, I'm currently using it as a workbench, rather shamefully. V is for Vauxhalls. This Chevette was really nice and unrestored. The FD and FE Victor Club had a nice selection, as they always do. The Auto Barnstormers were there with this Monza and a really nice Senator. There was a big range of Vivas, including this GT. And there were a Chevette HSR and HS with and without the flared wheel arches, respectively, on the Droop Snoot Club stand. Those guys had a couple of other cars that I got very excited about, but I'm going to save those for their own letter next time. W next, which is for Wales, land of my fathers, my Hen Wlad fy Gilbans. A good range of Gilbans, in fact, from the 1960s GT to this lovely purple Invader Mark III from the 70s, with Ford mechanicals, including the 3-litre Essex V6 engine. And this Invader Mark II, or is it Genie? One or the other. I can never tell them apart. I'm not sure what the difference is. Someone will tell me in the comments, probably. Anyway, really like these. And it's great to see them looking good. They're one of those cars that a lot of them seem to end up kind of on blocks in the back of a garage somewhere. So it's nice to see really smart ones up and about. X is for XJ40. The styling of these has matured like a fine cliche, and they look ever more tempting as the years go by. I really quite like the idea of having one. Maybe I should swap my XJS for one, in fact. Got that lovely AJ6 engine, and look at that interior. They're so low slung and sleek. What a way to travel around. Loving that classic early 90s Scion organiser, by the way. I've driven one briefly, and I know that it was kind of broken, but even a fairly broken one drives beautifully. And they just have proper luxury car. Really like these. It's good to see a range of them, including this V12 one as well. The Series 3 soldiered on alongside the XJ40 as the V12 variant for quite a long time, until about 1990-ish. This one is on an L-Reg, so it's getting towards the end of production before they were replaced by the later X300. Y is for yellow, like this Austin truck, which could be Dorset's answers to Duel if it wasn't quite so shiny. And the yellow of these Marcoses as well. I've got a real soft spot for Marcoses. I think they're epic things. And I met Chris Marsh once on a train when he was running the company, and he seemed like a really nice man. Look at the engine install on this blue one. I couldn't tell you much about it, but what a bit of engineering that is. Plus you could eat your dinner off it. Truly impressive, and I bet the sight of it is nothing compared to the noise. Wow. Finally, for this half of the report, Z is for Z cars. This lovely lineup of 1960s Zodiacs and, on the end, a Zephyr. Tatty ones of these were still street furniture when I was a small child, so it's slightly odd to see them looking immaculate. But that's by no means a complaint. In fact, there's a whole debate to be had about concourse condition versus barn find patina, but that's probably for another day and maybe another video. If you think there was a car there that you haven't seen me cover in this video, then there is a whole other video worth of footage in the pipeline, so I need to crack on with editing that. There's a whole other alphabet to come, so if you haven't clicked that notification thing on the subscribe thing, then I recommend you do, because YouTube is an absolute bear for not telling people about new videos. So click the notification so you don't miss it. I'll get that done in the next couple of days, and I'll see you then. So excited.